So much of the focus in church was on healing the father's wound. So much focus was on a masculine God. And it wasn't until my body began to tell a different story. I had the outside pretty cleaned up, pretty functional, but my body started to say, wait a minute, hold on. Things aren't really right. That's what happens when you start peeling the layers of the onion away, guys. That's what happens. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Max Afterburner podcast. And I am your host today, Theresa Noach, filling in for the great Wiz Buckley. Wiz, I just want to say thank you for throwing me in the seat. I've been listening to your podcast and we definitely bring a different flavor to the table. But I think that what I'm going to bring today is really appropriate for what we've been able to cultivate together with Sacred Warrior Fellowship. But before I jump right in, I just want to say to our listeners that wherever you are listening from, if you are enjoying our content, please go ahead and give us a good review, a thumbs up, like, share, all the good things, and go visit our website, nofallenheroes.com, and also learn more about Sacred Warrior Fellowship. We have had the opportunity just recently to host another amazing ceremony, one that's bigger than all of the ones we've had to date. And it just flowed so smooth because we have a camaraderie with our team and we have trust and we have unity. And it's so important when you are going into an entheogenic sacred space to understand a little bit, if not a lot of it, about the people that you're going to be journeying with. And when I was introduced to Susie Buckley, Matt's beautiful bride, when she was first launching the Sacred Warrior Fellowship, very first prototype, things kind of just fell into place, almost as if it was divine alignment. And we have been working together ever since. That very first ceremony enabled us to really see what we were going to be working with as a team and how we could bring all of our unique gifts and talents to the table. For example, one of our amazing stewards, Kat, we call her the fire woman. We were in a ceremony a few months ago, and I swear every time I turned around, she would have whatever I needed right in her hands. She would bring me the fire if she could. She'd bring me the rain. She'd bring me the wind. Kat, you are absolutely amazing and such a joy to work with. Zoya, she's been known as our ocean goddess because she just has a way with the instruments that sound exactly like the ocean. And I know that we've got some members out there that know exactly what I'm talking about. It is just so beautiful to have these gifts come together. Then also the next ceremony, being able to actually work with Matt. You guys got to see him in ceremony. You got to come check him out for yourself. I mean, he knows how to work a rattle. He knows how to work a drum. He's a regular medicine man in the making. And it has just been so much fun. We have had so many testimonies just flooding in this week after our last ceremony. It really is overwhelming. It's so overwhelming to see that the work that we have been given the opportunity to do is truly empowering people to break generational curses, to re-script their entire lives. We're seeing couples and parents completely restored back to their ability to believe in their wholeness, to believe that they have a purpose. And that's actually what I wanted to talk about today, was the human quest to understand our purpose. And when we look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we can see how everything starts from the survival needs. And unless the survival needs are met, there is no hope for realizing self-actualization. And this is why we have so many people that are sleeping, as we say, not awake consciously, because so many people in the world are struggling to simply survive, to simply meet their needs. And even if that sense of needing to survive is not a genuine threat. And what I mean by that is sometimes people feel that they are constantly needing to survive while they have a roof over their head. They have a job. They have the ability to take care of themselves, but feel this constant nagging sense of impending doom. And when we are experiencing that, it is almost impossible to move into the next stages of the development of human consciousness at that. And so when people come to ceremony, one of the most important aspects of ceremony that we establish as a team through the trust that we have with each other, through the camaraderie, and through the trust that we have in the divine as we invoke the presence of our guardians and our beings, elemental beings, directional guardians, all of the things. We know that we are supported. We know that we are creating a safe container for people to let go, fall into a state of surrender, which ultimately helps them restore their sense of safety in the world. Safety is associated with the root chakra. And when your root chakra is imbalanced, you are not living from a place of constantly needing to have your needs met. You're not living from a place of lack. When your root chakra is not open and not balanced, you have this constant state of unease, anxiety, and worry. And so many people that we meet are struggling with a lack of peace and a lack of a sense of purpose. And yet when we come together before a ceremony and we talk about our intentions, purpose is probably up there with the top 3 intentions that we hear, along with healing, along with peace and connection. We ask our members to think about what it is that they really want to get out of their ceremonial experience and sum it up with one word. And so the one word that I want to highlight and talk about today, as I said before, is purpose. This is something that comes up regularly. And I find that this is something that people really struggle with. I don't feel like I have a sense of purpose. So many people have spent their lives, especially once you get over 40, you get to a place where you start looking back and you realize whether you were a parent, whether you were committed to a career, whatever it was, you start realizing that you're not quite sure if what you've been spending your time on is really what you love. You're not sure if what you've been doing is really giving you a sense of fulfillment. You know, I am a mother of 3. I have a young adult, almost 20. I have a 17-year-old. She's going to be 17 this week. And I have a 10-year-old boy. And I'll tell you, I wasn't sure if I was going to survive. I was not sure if I was going to survive 13 to 16 as a mother of teenage girls. It was very colorful. And as I look back at my journey as a mother, and I look back at all of the beautiful lessons that were presented to me and to us as a family during that time, I'm so incredibly grateful for this life that I've lived, and I wouldn't change a thing. But as mothers or fathers, our children are going to grow up, and for many of us and many of our members and for many of you listening, they have. They're going to grow up, and you are still going to be you. And we start asking, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? I know many of you have asked yourself, what am I doing? Or maybe you're coming up on retirement years and it's like, you know, I thought it would be fun to play and to go and to just not have an agenda. But I know many people in retirement get sick of that too and start asking, what the hell am I supposed to be doing? I want to do something meaningful. And as soon as we start asking that question, it seems like we start realizing that there are some things we haven't really dealt with in our emotional lives and in our inner worlds, right? Because when we're in our 20s and we're going to school, or we're building a family, or we're pursuing a career, or we're chasing that bag, whatever it is that we're doing in the 20s, for most of us, it works to keep us busy and to give us a sense of purpose. I've shared a little bit of my story in previous episodes, but by the time I was in my teenage years, I was pretty messed up, guys. I was pretty messed up. I ended up as a young adult, 18 years old, in a relationship with somebody who was very violent and very controlling. And there was a point in my life where I was underneath the weight of his body with a knife to my throat when I discovered that I wasn't the only one in his life. And I brought it to his attention that I wasn't going to tolerate that and that I was going to leave. And he said, "No, you're not going to leave." And something happened to me in that moment. Something happened to myself on a deep, deep psychological level. I did not leave that relationship right away. Matter of fact, I went on to marry him, guys. It's called Stockholm's. And many, many women struggle with that. And it's also survival, as I was talking about earlier. We get to a point where the biology begins to override certain things. Like for survival purposes, I stayed in that relationship because I didn't believe that I could escape it in one piece. And because I had to learn how to live in the context of that relationship, my mind started to rewire itself in such a way that I could do that without experiencing a constant state of conflict. So we start to kind of justify the state that we're in and the relationships that we're in because we haven't felt like we could truly survive the separation of those things. Now, whether you were in a domestic violent situation or for whatever reason, through circumstances, you just came to believe that you could not survive outside of your situation, you started to develop a mindset that enabled you to stay in that situation somewhat comfortably. And in that process, we also develop what we call toxic coping mechanisms. And the crazy thing is, all of this is your body's amazing way of trying to keep you alive, trying to relieve you from the pain that you're feeling on a deep emotional level, the fear, the shame. All of that is associated with the root chakra I was talking about earlier. Shame, deep, deep, deep shame. So here I was in this relationship and I didn't feel like I could find my way out. But I remember my very first affirmation, morning affirmation before YouTube existed. And I know I'm dating myself a little bit, but I'm very proud of my age. I'm very proud of where I'm at in life because I have overcome. I have survived the fire over and over again. And I'm so thankful because I know that I was somehow guided, somehow protected. I know that I have guardian angels. And I know that when I got on my knees and I prayed, even though I didn't understand God, and I really thought I was God's one mistake, I got on my knees and I prayed and I said, God, this can't be what you intended for my life. This can't be my life's purpose. You know what I did? I rummaged through the junk drawer in the kitchen of the trailer, the camper that I lived in secret because I couldn't let my family know what I was going through because of the incredible shame that I felt about myself and my situation. So I got out a big ink marker and I wrote on my arm, I want to live. I want to live. And I knew that when I woke up in the morning, that would be the first thing that I saw. I knew that if I did not remind myself that I wanted to live, I wasn't going to make it, or he wasn't going to make it, or we both weren't going to make it. We had a ceremony a couple weekends ago, and I'm going to get the opportunity to bring my brother Sully in here soon to talk about how the sacrament has changed his life. But when I got there on Friday night and I was introduced to this group of gentlemen and warriors and soldiers that had been carrying the weights of the world on their back for decades, I could see the pain. It was tangible. I could feel the heaviness of the room. I could feel the spirit of death, more so in Sully than in some of the other guys that attended that week. He was suffering, and he was suffering from the inability to know how to live. When we sat down to talk about our intentions and we got to Sully, he was very, very closed off in a self-protective way, unintentionally or maybe intentionally. It's usually a process that happens in our lives over the course of time as a means to protect ourselves because we've been hurt a lot. But when we got to Sully and we asked what his intention was, he explained that he had multiple attempts to unalive himself, obviously to no avail, and that really deep down inside, he wanted to live, but he just didn't know. So when he said his one-word intention was to die, I thought that is remarkable, my friend. That is remarkable. Because when we get to the crossroad in our lives where we begin to ask ourselves, it's now or never, we begin to say, it's now or never. It's time to do something that I haven't done before. It is time, metaphorically speaking, to get that big fat marker out and write on your arm, I want to live. It's time to do something different today than you did yesterday. And here he was taking a chance in ceremony. He said, if this doesn't work, nothing will. I've tried everything. I've tried so many different therapeutic modalities, including pharmaceuticals. I've tried the drugs and the alcohol, the relationships, but nothing has been able to put me in line with a sense of purpose. So I've got to die. I've got to die. I've got to die to the fear. I've got to die to the shame. I've got to die to the, as the Bible says, the old man. But you know what? You know what is really going on, guys? Is we're remembering who we really are. And I think that the quest for purpose is indicative of the divine spark inside each and every one of us. The simple fact that we yearn to know what our purpose is, to me, is proof that we are children of God, that we are extensions of Source. It is the fire. It is the flame that doesn't go out. It is what brings us to the next crossroad and somehow gives us the ability to get back up and try again. And here we were getting ready for ceremony. And somehow my brother Sully had found it within himself because of that spark that never completely went out. He said, I'm going to give this a try. And I'm going to get him on here. So he's going to share his story with us soon. I'm not going to give you the whole thing. I'm not going to tell you exactly how it goes down, but I will say it's pretty freaking awesome. It's pretty freaking awesome. You know, when I did eventually escape that abusive marriage, I decided that I was going to find myself. I discovered my art, my passion for painting and drawing and poetry and all of the arts, for making music. I've been singing my entire life. And if you've been in ceremony, you know, singing is a big part of how I facilitate. Sound is the word of God. Frequency is the code of creation. And that code is fundamental inside every single one of us. Every single one of us has a God code in our DNA. And it's that quest for purpose that inspires us to keep going until one day, maybe one day, we realize that it wasn't all for nothing. We didn't suffer just to suffer, and we're not here to suffer and die. We are here to redefine the trials, to redefine our experiences, to rescript our lives. But sometimes depending on our experiences, depending on how heavy our traumatic experiences were and how much they shaped our subconscious mind, some of us have a more difficult time getting to that point where we can believe and hope in a better future than what we've experienced. And for many people, that's why they are coming to sacred ceremony and they are uniting with the sacraments that bring us into union with the divine through nature and through fellowship with each other. It seems extreme, hallucinogenic therapy of sorts. It seems extreme and many people are afraid, but I'm telling you, the results are incredible. So as I got out of my first marriage that I was sharing with you, I say by the grace of God, I was given a path out. I started finding myself, and shortly within that time, I met my now husband, and we eventually had our first 2 children, 2.5 years apart. And up until I became a mother, I had no sense of purpose. I started to find the things that I could channel my energy into, my artistic flow. But there was a deep, 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 deep sense of shame and a deep sense of unworthiness. And that affected everything in my life. It affected my ability to focus in school. I wasn't able to finish college. It affected my ability to have peace in my relationship and really my ability to enjoy being a mom. I was so stressed out, but there was nothing I wanted more than to be a good mom and to change the legacy for my own children. But I didn't know how I was going to do that. And church changed my life, guys. Church changed my life. God, source, spirit, the divine within led me down a path where I would then commit myself completely devoted for almost 15 years in the Christian faith. I was able to develop a sense of stability. I was able to start tapping into some of those deep-seated feelings of unworthiness. What church gave me was the ability to realize that I was still worthy of love and that, yes, God did have a purpose for me. I was able to really clean up my life and apply myself. I started a business. I committed myself to studying theology and to pursuing pastoral roles in ministry. I worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the jail and in the streets. Eventually was ordained and given a nonprofit organization where we mentored women that were completely destitute in most cases. I was able to really clean up my life a lot and channel my life force energy into being a mother and being a mentor and in sharing with other people some of the disciplines that I had found that changed my life and some of the principles that I began to build my life on. And that is, I am worthy of love and God doesn't make imperfect things. And somehow I, one of those perfectly imperfect expressions of God. And I was able to share that. And I was able to extend the ladder to many, many people in the Christian faith. I was very passionate about scriptures. I do feel that perhaps it's a trauma response, being able to be extremely optimistic in my case. Maybe it was one of the ways in which I coped with feeling like I constantly had the rug pulled out from under me. In order to get up and believe that I could keep going, I had to somehow learn how to master the art of rewriting the meaning of disaster. And I shared that. I shared that with people, and it worked for them like magic. If we can learn how to spin the story that we've been telling ourselves. We can change the energy that runs our lives. We can begin attracting completely new scenarios, creating for ourselves a momentum that presents opportunities for growth and blessing. But one important piece that I had not learned in the church was how to really heal my heart as it pertained to nurture and the attributes of the feminine. So much of the focus in church was on healing the father's wound. So much focus was on a masculine God. And it wasn't until my body began to tell a different story. I had the outside pretty cleaned up, pretty functional, but my body started to say, wait a minute, hold on, things aren't really right. That's what happens when you start peeling the layers of the onion away, guys. That's what happens. You begin to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the subconscious mind. And I like to think that this is what the Bible meant when it said that when we heal, when we pursue love, when we get on the path of wholeness, our lives begin to go from glory to glory. We get to go from level to level to level to level. You never stop. You are part of an expanding universe. You are part of an amazing, growing, beautiful, evolving picture. And when we stop growing, we stop healing. So my body started to manifest in autoimmune disorders and even organ failure, guys. And that's when I was introduced to earth, as we call it, earth medicine, the sacraments of ceremony that radically healed my body, changed my life, and brought me a whole new perspective on what it means to be in alignment with purpose, what it means to live. As I began to really sit and learn again and listen, this time to the earth. I learned to be a student of nature. I learned to feel my way to the truth. I knew that where I was going in my transformation journey was going to require me to see with a different set of eyes. I got what I used to call a word from God in 2019, previous to having all of these health crises hit me and ending up on the path that I am now with ceremony. We were coming up on 2020. And here I had this vision for the organization, and I knew that I was going to have a retreat center of some types, or I thought I was going to bring this vision into the organization that I was currently working with. But little did I know how things were about to unfold, and I couldn't have asked for it to unfold any more beautifully. But it was on my vision board. And here we were going into 2020, and I knew that this vision for a healing center was going to start building momentum. But what I didn't understand is that I was about to have my complete belief system reworked. I did learn that it's okay to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. It can be scary when you start turning over the rocks that you've stood on as it pertains to your spiritual beliefs for your whole life. But I knew that the one thing I could trust above all, because of the experience that I had had up to that point spiritually, I knew I could trust love. And that if I had to take all of the preconceived ideas about God off the table to deepen my understanding of life and purpose in the divine, that I was willing to do it. I was willing to throw everything in the fire one by one, if the fruit itself was healing, wholeness, and love. And it was, and it has been. You know, when I was writing my book in 2018, I came across a term called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And you can look it up. ACEs is a measuring tool to help professionals understand the likelihood that a young person has of developing illness as an adult, everything from mental illness, body dysmorphia, depression, anxiety, addiction, suicidal tendencies, to even autoimmune disorders like what I had, which also include type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Depending on the level of a person's adverse childhood experiences, a professional who was evaluating this information could determine the likelihood that somebody would have in experiencing one or more of these chronic illnesses. And so when we look at our world today and we see how riddled we are with all of these things and how the compounded pressure of life on top of sickness is just a horrifying cycle that so many people feel trapped in. How is anyone ever to be able to move up that hierarchy of needs from survival into expanded consciousness? And if wholeness on a global scale were to be possible, then we have to be able to move out of a place of survival and into a place of growth and learning and relationship and self-actualization. But if we are stuck in the adverse effects of trauma, then essentially we aren't going to be able to heal collectively. And once upon a time in my younger years, I had a grandiose vision of how I was going to be a part of some radical world healing movement. And I thought it was going to come through evangelism in the Christian church. I have completely had my mind blown because I can tell you I have the privilege and honor of being part of a world-changing movement that is building incredible momentum in the area of bringing human beings out of that chronic state of fight or flight survival and into a place of expanded consciousness where potential is infinite. The people that are leaving our ceremonies are sending us messages every single day about how they are experiencing greater levels of peace and wholeness. Peace and fear do not cohabitate, guys. If we're experiencing peace, we've been set free from a constant state of fear. Chronic fear is a pathology. And for many of us, it does go back to early childhood trauma. And one of the things that we are realizing, even though what we do, our ministry started off with Sacred Warrior Fellowships with a primary focus on ending veteran suicide, and that is still a primary focus, but we quickly realized that this is not all about the trauma wounds of being in the military. For most of them, their trauma started way back when. Guys, we are all born into a hurting world to some degree. And while some of us may have been far more supported emotionally and mentally, there is also something called collective trauma. And there are collective psychological responses to said trauma that impair our ability to abide in a sense of safety, which keep us stuck in those lower energies of self-preservation at all costs, self-protective mechanisms that also keep us isolated from healthy relationships. And that's something that I also get to witness with our Sacred Warrior Fellowship is people are rediscovering their ability to be in relationship with others. This is such an important part of life. And so I know I'm starting to run out of time, and I want to bring this back to that one word, that one intention, purpose. And what I'm seeing ceremony after ceremony after ceremony is that when we have something so powerful, like these incredible sacraments, some of the Amazonian sacraments that we work with, the psilocybin, we have powerful tools that help us embrace a new perspective. And that perspective encompasses a sense of wholeness. When I went on my very first, I'm going to say this in closing, when I went on my very first shamanic journey, I got to sit underneath Mama Sophia, the oak tree, and she narrated my entire journey. And one of the most profound and powerful lessons that she gave me that day, as she showed me the energies of fear that are associated with a perception of separation from love, i.e. God, and a perception of wholeness and the attributes that come along with that. When we can perceive our wholeness, our true divine state of being, health of mind, body, and soul begin to manifest. They are the fruit of a healthy tree. When we develop a perception of separation, we end up operating in life from an energy of fear, and the attributes or additional emotions associated with that energy, call it energetic match to fear, are going to be anger, are going to be depression, sadness, grief, jealousy, all of those toxic emotions that perpetuate dysfunction, bitterness, hopelessness. Did I say that? Those are all associated with our inability to perceive wholeness. And for many people, it's really hard to wrap your mind around the fact that you are whole. And for many shamanic practitioners and shamans, soul retrieval is the process of bringing back all those fragmented pieces of self and reintegrating them. I don't necessarily believe that we are ever truly fragmented from source, but perception really is reality. And when we perceive that we are fragmented, when we perceive that we are broken, we live from that reality. And so when we also perceive that we've brought those pieces back in, when we're able to go on that journey and collect the pieces of ourself that we thought we lost, we begin to put together a whole new puzzle and a whole new picture. And we begin to write a whole new story about our lives. And so I want to leave you with this today. I don't believe that there is any other purpose for life other than life itself. Each one of us as intentional creators, as extensions of the divine, have within us the innate ability to create in many different ways. This is where all of our personalities come into play. And maybe I'm more artistic in how I create, but I really respect when I see one of my peers that have administrative gifts that I don't have, and they think to themselves, I'm just not creative. I don't have any creative gifts, but you have a lot of gifts and talents. And there are so many ways that you can rewrite your story to be able to see how the challenges and trials in your life have produced something of value in your life. But the purpose of life is life. And if you haven't had a chance to really take a sacred journey and to rediscover your ability to perceive that life is good, I invite you to check out our website and to check out our upcoming retreats and see about getting on that schedule. Maybe, just maybe, ceremony is calling you too. It has changed my life, and I really do believe that this is the way that we're going to make a rapid advancement in the expansion and the healing of the collective consciousness. I believe this is how we are changing family legacies and the trajectory of societies. And so for today, I'm going to close and leave you with one final word. Your life has meaning, and every single thing that you've been through in life up to this point can serve as a powerful reminder that you have the ability to overcome and to walk through the fire and to be refined and to come out on the other side and to turn around and to share that with someone else. That is what it's about. And Jesus said, I came to restore that which was lost. And in the book of Psalms, King David said, I go through the valley of the shadow of death, and I fear no evil, for you are with me. So we go. The hero's journey is through the valley of the shadow of death. It's through our own shadows. It's through our own family karma. It's through our own seeming mistakes and things that we didn't have or that we did have. It's going through that valley of the shadow of death and making our way back to that garden to reclaim the peace that is your rightful inheritance. And that's what we're all about. So for today, guys, over and out. Hey guys, if you want access to our Sacred Warrior Circle, it's only $49 a month, and it helps us provide grants for veterans, their families, and first responders to attend Entheogenic ceremonies. So hop on over to our website, sacredwarriorfellowship.org, to get signed up and be a part of our growing tribe.